Throughout the IndyCar world, Coyne Racing is known to be the smallest team in the paddock. But after a rough couple of seasons, they managed to shock everyone on debut in 2026 in St. Pete just a week ago. So give me a few minutes and I'll explain why. While everyone's focused on the driver debuts at new teams like Will Power at Andretti, or David Malukas at Penske, or even just looking for more Alex Palou dominance, in the first race out in 2026, Coyne Racing got both of their drivers into the Firestone Fast 6 and ended the race with both cars in the top 10, breaking records in the process, all while having so much uncertainty and change in the offseason. It's safe to say that expectations weren't exactly high, but that didn't really matter. First though, some context is necessary as to why Coyne Racing is the smallest team on the grid, and why it's so damn impressive that they were able to pull something off like this. Despite DCR being in IndyCar for a while, they still are known to be the smallest team, both financially and engineering-wise. When it comes to finances, Coyne is often described as the last true independent IndyCar team, mostly because of their owner-centric structure. Unlike the bigger teams that have huge boards of personnel, big manufacturer ties, or multi-series infrastructures, DCR is simply just none of that. And it kind of just functions as Coyne himself, the owner of the team, and that's it. Coyne himself keeps the passion that racing once had with the traditional owner-driver business model, and it shows as he's usually involved in everything from negotiating sponsorship deals to having input and strategy from the pit box. Because of this, Coyne Racing does not function on a huge budget like teams like Penske and Andretti can, and typically operate on a budget that's estimated to be $6 to $8 million per car, whereas a team like Penske is estimated to spend above $12 million per car, making them the mom and pop shop of IndyCar. A big reason as to why they're able to do this is because they function as a grounds for talent, and that's why you've seen so many drivers spend time at Coyne before moving to a top team. Drivers like Alex Palou or Romain Grosjean in his first stint with the team are risky, but they come with their own financial backing. So Coyne's more than happy to give him a spot where other teams wouldn't, but finances aren't the only factor. As I mentioned before, the team Coyne operates with is minimal to say the least. While teams like Andretti will have well over 100 employees, Coyne Racing operates with a lot less, with the exact number being unknown, but it's definitely well under 50. But they did make some changes in that department this year that helped a lot, but I'll get into that later. With all that information known, you can see why expectations were low. Small team, small budget, and the results in recent years weren't exactly great. 2024 was an example of this at its height, where the team fielded 9 different drivers across the year, pretty much saying, whoever has the money to drive, take the car this week, which doesn't exactly set you up for success. 2025 was a step in the right direction though, as the team stuck with Rinus VeeKay and Jacob Abel for the entire year. And VeeKay did do pretty well, even getting a podium in Toronto. But that still doesn't set us up to expect what happened last week. To begin with, it all starts with the new driver lineup, with the first pickup being Dennis Hauger being announced back in 2025 in September. Hauger is a Norwegian driver that came up through the F1 feeder series, winning F3 in 2021 and competing in F2 for 3 seasons after that, before making the move to Indy NXT in 2025 and winning the title. Going back to the claim about Coyne being a grounds for talent, Hauger specifically falls into this category, and also brings another thing to the table that massively helps out Coyne, and that's the technical partnership with Andretti. If you're unfamiliar with the concept of technical partnerships, it's when 2 teams share certain resources, data, engineering expertise, and sometimes even personnel to better on-track performance. But it functions a little bit differently here than most. Teams like AJ Foyt have become satellite teams for Penske, or similar with Meyer Shank and Ganassi, but Coyne functions on more of a parts and data level. The way it works is DCR is still located in Illinois and doesn't share people with Andretti, but they are meeting frequently and discussing how to get better through data. This mostly works because Hauger's an Andretti-backed driver, but not only his car reaps the benefits. Speaking of not only his car, across the garage from him is Romain Grosjean, who's no stranger to Coyne, but it has been a while. Grosjean started his IndyCar career back with Coyne in 2021, where he achieved some solid results. He scored 15th in the championship and scored 3 podiums across his rookie season with the team, before moving to Andretti, where he finished 13th for the next 2 years, and after that, he moved to Hunko's Hollinger for a year, and then had to take a year off in 2025 as he didn't get signed, and he served as a reserve driver for the Prema team, but he did get the ride this year. Even though Coyne signed Hauger back in September, Grosjean was the last announcement of drivers on the grid on February 13th, roughly 2 weeks before the season opener in St. Pete. Grosjean was claimed to be somewhat of a risky move by many, as his stint in Indy kind of tapered off near the end, but this was a familiar relationship being rekindled here. Despite all uncertainty, the team showed out anyways. It started out with both cars making it to the Fast 12, and then to the Fast 6, and then Dennis Hauger putting his car into third, with Grosjean coming 6th. This marked the highest a driver had ever placed in qualifying on debut since Robert Wickens took pole in St. Pete back in 2018, and Hauger wasn't far off pole as he was only 3/100ths of a second off Scott McLaughlin's time. That's the blink of an eye, and for most rookies in IndyCar, it'll take a bit to get up to speed, but Hauger did it in 20 minutes. As for Grosjean, 6th was last in the top 6 session, but he went out on old tires in order to make sure he had 2 fresh sets for the race, a proper strategic call. And P6 is definitely not something to scoff at, and for the first time, the team put both cars in the Fast 6 since 2022. This translated into the race, where both drivers did end up finishing lower than their qualifying positions, but that isn't all too terrible when you exceed expectations so much. Hauger ended up in P10 and Grosjean in P8, the first time the team has done this since 2021 in Detroit. That result may not sound great if you're coming from F1, but in such a competitive series like IndyCar, this is outstanding. Grosjean drove a proper veteran race, and those tires he saved, those helped him fend off Rinus VeeKay and almost kept him ahead of Joseph Newgarden in the closing laps of the race. On Hauger's end, it was about learning, and bringing it home in P10 is a solid outcome. As a result, Coyne Racing managed to outplace all of the cars from Meyer Shank, Rahal Letterman Lanigan, ECR, and AJ Foyt, all which were favored over them in most people's rankings, as they saw Coyne Racing being a bit of a lobby filler. A good weekend for the team, and when the drivers were asked where the credit goes, Romain Grosjean pointed to the engineering team. And as I mentioned earlier, some changes were made in the offseason, but it actually started last year. In May of 2025, Coyne hired both Michael Cannon and Mike Colliver to the team, and at the start of February, they brought in Bill Pappas. Now, if you aren't familiar with these guys, let me break down their past for you. Mike Cannon worked with DCR from 2014 to 2019, engineering a good bit of drivers, and he'd also done the same in recent years with AJ Foyt, Prema, and Chip Ganassi, helping deliver results, especially on ovals, which is one of DCR's weak points. Mike Colliver was a consulting engineer for DCR in 2024, where most recently he engineered Ryan Hunter-Reay in the Indy 500, where he was running up in the front before a pit stop issue ended his chances of winning. Finally, Bill Pappas was also a former Coyne engineer before stepping into a role with IndyCar itself in 2016, but he wanted a taste into the team side of things again this year. Pappas had quite the resume, helping DCR win in Texas with Justin Wilson in 2012, and working to get 2 Indy 500 victories with both Juan Pablo Montoya in 2000 and 1989 with Emerson Fittipaldi. Pairing him with Grosjean makes perfect sense because it's the perfect veteran-to-veteran combo. At the end of the day, this performance at Coyne Racing in St. Petersburg was a reminder of why we watch IndyCar. In a world of billion-dollar corporate companies and perfectly polished manufacturer programs, there still is room for a guy from Illinois who just wants to go racing. By signing Romain Grosjean, Dennis Hauger, and building up the right core of engineers, the team proved the mom-and-pop shop of IndyCar is not dead, and if you trust your gut, David can beat Goliath. The question heading into the rest of the season, can DCR keep up this pace? But one thing is for sure, you can never count out Coyne Racing.